Dark channels cut across the Martian surface. Wide basins sit empty. Fan-shaped deltas spread outward from places where nothing flows anymore. Today, Mars looks frozen and lifeless, a world of dust and rock. But those features should not exist on a planet that was always dry. The valleys did not appear all at once. The lake basins were not carved in a single brief event. Water had to move, collect, and remain there for long periods of time. Across large regions of the planet, liquid water once shaped the landscape in ways that are still visible today. That changes the picture completely. The contradiction is difficult to ignore. The landscape says, Mars once supported long-term surface water. The planet in front of us says it should not have. If Mars once had the conditions needed to keep all that water on the surface, what happened to them? Look at Mars today, and the obvious loss seems to be water. The riverbeds are empty. The lake basins are dry. The deltas end in dust. But the moment you follow that idea to its conclusion, something stops making sense. Water is not just missing from Mars. Water struggles to exist there at all. On modern Mars, the atmosphere is so thin that stable liquid water cannot remain on the surface for long periods. The conditions needed to support rivers, lakes, and persistent surface water are gone. That changes the order of the disaster. The ancient valleys still cut across the landscape. The lake basins still mark where water once gathered. Those features point to a world where liquid water could stay in place long enough to reshape entire regions. Yet the Mars we see now cannot support that reality. The water did not simply disappear from a planet that stayed the same. The planet itself changed first. That removes the simplest explanation. Mars did not become uninhabitable because it lost water. Mars lost water because it became uninhabitable. Suddenly, the rivers become evidence of a larger loss. Before Mars could lose its water, it had to lose the conditions that allowed the water to exist in the first place. The dry landscape is not the original problem. It is the result. The mystery is no longer where the water went. The mystery is what removed the conditions that allowed the water to exist in the first place. The pieces suddenly seem to lock together. Evidence suggests that Mars once possessed a global magnetic field. At some point, that field weakened and eventually disappeared. Suddenly, the losses stopped looking separate. One failure could explain all of them. Lose the protection, lose the atmosphere, lose the water. Now the sequence starts to feel almost inevitable. First, the magnetic shield weakens. Then the atmosphere begins to thin. As the atmosphere disappears, the conditions needed for long-lasting surface water disappear with it. Rivers stop flowing. Lakes vanish. The planet slowly transitions into the cold, dry world we see today. For the first time, the transformation of Mars looks less like a collection of separate mysteries and more like a single chain of events. The ancient river valleys make sense. The vanished atmosphere makes sense. The missing water makes sense. Instead of asking where the water went, the focus shifts to the thing that may have allowed everything else to happen. Mars lost its planetary protection, and the rest followed. For the first time, the transformation appears predictable. If this explanation is correct, evidence of atmospheric loss should still exist. The explanation feels complete. Mars lost its magnetic protection. The atmosphere thinned. The water disappeared. For the first time, the transformation of Mars appears fully explained. Then a spacecraft arrived and discovered the process had never ended.
NASA's MAVEN mission detected atmospheric particles escaping from Mars today. Not in the distant past, not in computer reconstructions, right now. And something even more revealing appeared in the data.
When activity from the sun intensified, the escape rates increased significantly. More particles streamed away from the planet. The process accelerated. Suddenly, the explanation stops looking complete. The atmosphere was not simply removed in the distant past. The removal never fully stopped. The atmosphere was not stripped away during a single catastrophic event billions of years ago. It is still being stripped away. The same loss that transformed ancient Mars has never completely stopped. That realization breaks the image of a planet that died long ago. The river valleys belong to the distant past. The vanished lakes belong to the distant past. But the mechanism connected to those losses is still operating. Even now, Mars is continuing the same slow transition. Not over years, not over civilizations, over immense stretches of planetary time. The death of Mars was not a moment. It was a leak, a planetary leak that remained open for billions of years. Not enough to transform the world overnight, more than enough to transform it eventually. Which creates an uncomfortable comparison. Mars and Earth orbit the same sun. So why did one world continue losing its atmosphere while the other did not? Mars still carries the scars. The dry river valleys remain carved into the surface. Empty lake basins still mark places where water once collected. The evidence never disappeared. What changed was the way those clues fit together. The water was not the first thing Mars lost. Before the rivers vanished, the planet lost the atmospheric conditions that allowed them to exist. Before that, it lost the planetary protection that helped preserve those conditions in the first place. Earth followed a different path. Earth still retains the magnetic protection that Mars lost. The atmosphere remained in place. Liquid water remained stable on the surface. The chain of losses that transformed Mars never fully took hold here. That realization changes what the Martian landscape represents. Those river valleys are not simply proof that water once flowed there. They are evidence that Mars once possessed something it could not keep. Throughout the story, the water looked like the loss. In reality, the water was one of the last things to disappear. The first loss was invisible. By the time the rivers disappeared, the real damage had already been done. The protection failed first. The atmosphere followed. The water followed after that. By the time the rivers vanished, the outcome had already been decided. Mars is often remembered as the planet that lost its water. But water was never the real mystery. Water survived until the very end. The real loss happened long before the rivers disappeared. Mars lost protection before it lost water.